All right, let's see if we got the mic good. Test, test. Looks like we're good. Can I just get confirmation that you guys can hear me in the chat, please? Mic sounds a little bit bad. Mic's good. Does it? All right, you guys. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, thank you, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened before. All right, so today we might have to. We're gonna have to go like this. So first off, we're gonna actually go and watch my stream from this morning. Let me make sure you guys don't see any login details. But how are you guys doing? We're gonna be looking at the stream from this morning. I've actually not really ever watched one of my streams back, which honestly I feel like I probably should be doing. So this is gonna be interesting. We're not gonna be watching the whole thing. We're probably gonna skip around a little bit. I definitely want to have you guys hear my morning bias and what we were thinking in the morning, what we were looking for, and then skip to specific points in there where it makes sense. So 316. All right. Unless you're talking now, are you able to hear me? Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. Power of Three and ES, please, today if you want. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We're just gonna go over morning prep that we did this morning, and then the two trades. We had two major trades, and then the other ones we pretty much just got stopped out on. So let me make sure you guys can hear my desktop. All right. So we're going to get started. And we're just going to pretty much listen, and I'll cut in when it makes sense to. But where did that range start? We had this out. Test, test. There we go. We've trained our minds to control our bodies in certain ways due to experiences throughout our life without even knowing it. So we have to break those old mind habits before our body will follow. Interesting. Where did that range start? We had this outside bar here. Actually, no, they didn't even take out the high of that. We took out the highs of this bar, went outside of all that, and you can see we hammered back through. Took forever, just a tick above these highs. Now we're falling back into the range. Looking at it that way, we would expect almost this low to get taken out, right? Which too quiet. Won't happen unless we go two down on the day, which we don't have any actionable signals to really get us there. If that's what I got we were thinking. So we can't really think that, or at least we can think that, but we can't really trade for that because we're going to be stuck doing that. And we don't really want to trade anything that's stuck, kind of like yesterday morning. Just things that are stuck aren't doing anything for us, right? If we go to NASDAQ, this one I am interested in solely because we go to the 4 hour. This is our big, technically 4 hour order block, if you want to call it that. If we just look here, we can see we have outside bar, 2 down, and coming back into the outside bar. That is something I would want to know about because you can see this big broadening formation, and we know NASDAQ, at least for the time being, is 2 down and green on the week with outside week magnitude. So if we go to the Qs, we're going to see that thing opening around 298.83 with magnitude to 304. So about $5 of range that we can try and get out of this one, which isn't too shabby. The only thing that kind of sucks is a lot of things today are sorry, I'm gonna pause it. For questions, anything you ask, I will be doing. I'll look at the questions afterwards, but we're gonna talk a lot about this, and then questions will come after we're done. Kind of just going through some trades and walking you guys through. But we're gonna go back into this. Questions will come later, probably in like a half hour to an hour. Gonna be 3-2s, and we also do have this intermediate target up here on NASDAQ with these equal highs sitting here. So need to keep that target in mind, and also the fact that these are continuations, even though you can see like yesterday, NASDAQ continuation 3-2, they can work. We just need to see them go quickly and stay above that previous day high as soon as possible and for as long as possible. And if we go to what we should be looking at today, there's honestly very few setups that I'm super crazy about. And what you'll notice is most of the things are strong. If we go to like NVIDIA, they're either really close to going outside on the week with 3s yesterday, which means if we go back to the daily here, if we go 3-2 on the day for NVIDIA, take out these highs, if we get exhaustion risk up here, which more often than not we will, and you can see if we just kind of mark out these highs, you get exhaustion risk. Mark them out again, you get exhaustion risk. Now we're marking them out again, and will we get that exhaustion risk? I would bet so. Doesn't mean we have to if we don't fall back in below previous day high after taking out outside week. So this part I want to touch on, it's really important. When we're talking about this 3 right here, this 3-2, the way this works is this 3, if we are above the high, so if we're above previous day high, and the reason it's a 3 for those that are new, this low right here is lower than the previous day's low. This high is higher than the previous day's high. So that's a 3. When we're playing 3-2s, which are just taking out previous day high or taking out previous day low, that is a 3. We're looking for it to stay above that 3's high, because as long as we're above that, this 3 is going to, it's expanding longer. And if you know broadening formations, we know this lower low and this higher high, that becomes a higher high on a lower time frame if this second day over here doesn't take this out. Because if we're looking at what a swing high is, you can see not a lot of good examples, but we have a low here, lower low, and higher low, right? So that's important to note, because this 3-2, if we are going to expand it, if we're going to go and take out this and go even further, we're not going to come back below that 3's high. And if we do come back below that high, we target the other side of the 3, because we know if we take out one side of the range, which would be the high, and then fail it, we'd go to the other one. So that's what I'm saying here. I guess I didn't really say it as clean as or as clear as I wanted to, but right at the end there, I did. If we go and zoom back, I did mention have to. If we don't fall back in below previous day high after taking out outside week, then we're technically not falling back in, right? So need to keep that in mind across everything. And for example, if we go to Microsoft, you can see if we just go to like an hourly time frame, we're coming to the top of this try on the hourly, right? So if we also go to the week, this thing is already outside on the week. So the second it starts falling back in, we're going to have some issues, right? And this one is not quite close to reversing its day, so I'm not saying to go and short these things, but it's all continuations and we don't have actionable signals. So we're going to have to play the lower time frames for the most part today. As for what I am curious about, Tesla is one of those. We have clustered pivots sitting above. We go to a weekly time frame. We had a lot of 3s up here. Now we have 2 down in green trying to come back into the range. And if we go to the daily, we knew about this broadening formation up here, which what happened? This was our try, or we could have drawn it like this once we updated to this low. We gapped into it, and then we went 2-2 expanding the try, 2, and then here's 2-2 reversal. Now that's the low of the try, and we're trying to come back into it. So we have this hammer actionable signal. We are above the weekly open, which is back here, and we have clustered pivots. So this is perfect, right? So funny enough, we actually got stopped out of Tesla, which we're about to see as we go through this video, and I'm going to start skipping parts once we get through the analysis part. But we actually stopped out of it, and we just kind of ignored it the rest of the day because it wasn't going. As long as Qs can trade higher, I would expect Tesla to try and do the same and at least give us up into like 186, 185. And as long as we can get that, we should have a pretty easy trade off the open. And if we go to Chewy, this is another one. And I know the spreads are terrible, but there was some flow that went into the middle of next month's, I think it's next month's expiration calls, the 40 calls, that I'm kind of interested in following. So if we can get daily reversal on Chewy, it's the April 21st calls. I'll mention the strike again if we do end up taking them. But April 21st calls, and you're going to see we have 312 Rev Strat with a hammer coming off the bottom of the try. So interesting look nonetheless, and we have magnitude of 4,213. So definitely can see this thing try to do it if we're going to hold high or low and actually just not complete this full broadening formation from here, and you can see higher highs and get that lower low, which again, kind of a back burner one. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to want to take that right away, and we don't know where it's opening yet because it has not traded pre-market, and we know Chewy is pretty illiquid, so we need to keep that in mind as well. This was also one we just did not end up trading. We really just focused on the indexes and then found the strength throughout the day as it kind of continued, which is what I want to highlight once we get to it. And I also mentioned Target and McDonald's. Those are also ones where it's kind of like not the best, not the worst. You can see on Target what I've marked out. So we do have some decent range on Target, and we would redraw it to these lows now. And the thing that I'm really interested in here is we have the rev strat, and we have all these pivots clustered right next to each other, and we have the top of a 3 over here if they want to get fancy and really get moving. If we go to a weekly basis, like everything else, it's 2-9 green trying to come back in. This one is just a bit weaker, and it's just because we are stuck. This is our broadening formation that we're starting to form inside of these highs here and these highs here. And one thing I want to touch on was Qs yesterday. We can see how that ended up working after we actually hopped off, but our try, we know from the 1 minute time frame we had slightly higher highs in here, right? We came all the way down, took out this low, and the importance of that, and I don't know if I mentioned it yesterday, but the importance of that was since we took out previous day low and failed it, we would expect that potential outside day so long as we stay above it. And when you redraw the try, it'd be something like this. And since you're using this low, where's the high that took out highs? It'd be that high. So it'd actually be redrawn to here since we're no longer stuck inside this range and we took out that low, which I know a lot of people on the future side of things are actually trading this. If we go to the NASDAQ, I'm going to start skipping. I believe, let's see it, decent tear into that big air, decent today. And as far as NASDAQ, what I'd want to see is we see this range that's forming here. I would want to see us move down back in aggressively and then try and continue higher if they're going to do so. And that same idea with the tries, you can see we had the low back here. We put in highs up here. Now we are starting to create a new broadening formation inside that range. And if we zoom back even more on that, you can see it's actually this big broadening formation like so. So we can target up here. So that's what we'll be looking for off the open, and Tesla would be definitely one of my top watches. Second to that, we could be watching Target. It's not like the best setups. They're a little bit weaker, but there just really isn't much to pick from. And when there's not much to pick from, we don't want to just be super aggressive and jump into things. We want to think maybe the market can exhaust, or maybe like if we go and look at Microsoft and stuff, it's like these things, they're not going to go up forever, right? They're going to want to pull back at some point. So we need to start thinking about that, especially given we're coming to the top of the tries. And for example, Microsoft, you have the low here, the high here, and this is all stuck inside. So it makes sense they started. And one thing I want to add on that is we can start thinking that, but this is still expanding the try. Kind of like we said before, as long as it's going 2-2-2 continuation, if it doesn't reverse, it's still expanding the range in one direction. So for example, you can see over here, we had an inside bar reversal off the top of this broadening formation here. It goes 2-2-2. It's hitting target here, but just because it's hitting that side of the broadening formation doesn't mean it has to reverse here. We wait and see, does price reverse? Because we trade what price is doing, right? And if we look at Microsoft today, it actually went and expanded its try, which is something we know about. So when we're talking about this, I guess I should be more clear going forward. And this is something I'm happy I'm rewatching this because it's awesome to see it. But I'm gonna let it play and continue. A new try, right? And we're trading right at the top of it currently. So want to keep all of that in mind, and we don't want to be scared of letting them open. We got about 15 more minutes, so we'll go through the gappers quickly. So not to spoil it, but the gappers list was really not much for us today, and earnings season is kind of cooling down, so gappers just aren't going to be very good today. And I believe Elaine, which is our trader who does trade the gappers, I believe she was mostly on like SPY and Qs today. Let me see. Yeah, she was mostly SPY, IWM, Snapchat, Mara, etc. So not really much on the gappers. Sadly, there just wasn't much volume or news overnight. But we're gonna start skipping forward a bit. Hopefully, yeah, talking stuff. Yeah, so interesting is we do have similar setups on like Citigroup, and these are all like, all right, here's some more. And as for banks, I know that's been the talk of the town, and it is part of our gappers list this morning. One thing I'd like to add is when you have all this news and all these things with banks going on, your daily ranges are like a week, right? So if you trade the strat, you're gonna have a good time if those ranges continue to stay big. So banks have just been on our watch list every single day. We didn't really end up trading them. I believe yesterday we didn't trade very much. I think there was one signal on JPM that was nice. I don't believe I filled it, but I know a couple people did. And today we actually did have a nice signal on JPM, which I can't wait for you guys to see. We can be looking at BAC, potential 222. So you can see 2 up in red, magnitude gets gap 2 down in green, back into the range. 2 reversal above yesterday's highs with good magnitude up to 38.08. So again, this is another case of if it starts moving, we can expect that. If it doesn't, then we'll just have to stop out and not be a part of that. And the thing that is interesting is we do have similar setups on like Citigroup, and these are all like decently sized banks, so they're probably not going under. At least I'd imagine they wouldn't. You can see GS. Yeah, so GS similar. It's a little weaker though. MS similar but weaker. So we'll see if they try and do it. But so far, nothing too crazy. I don't know. I just wish we had some better setups going into today, but that doesn't always happen. So we'll have to deal with what we got. These highs again, because this is the top of our trial gap, right? So I would expect that to be a little higher, and we want to see that same kind of structure where we get really aggressive down and then back up, which means they just didn't give. So this is just talking about kind of futures pre-market. We'll see. And also, we don't have any structure broken yet. We have these highs and this low. So we'll have to wait and see. And if Qs really starts coming back in, if we do start failing these highs again, because this is the top of our try, right? So the idea with trend and things that make higher highs and higher lows is these highs, we don't fail those and fall back in, because then we go back to the other side of the range, right? So we want to see them hold those highs. If they start failing them, then first of all, Qs will be inside day, but we technically will be falling back into a 3. Which again, it's like we want to see this go 3-2 so we can have at least something going for us. There's not many downside setups we can take today. If anything, if we go inside day on Qs, maybe everything else goes inside day. And one thing I want you guys to notice is since we don't really have super good setups, I'm not going into this day super biased. All I know and all I've really mentioned is, hey, so for the most part, things are going up, so we need to look at the things going up, or look for things reversing to go up, like Target, which I showed you guys while I was playing. And we will bias up, but we have to let them open and let them tell us what they're going to do. And the way we do that is these wicks on the daily, like once that goes from red to green, when we notice that first hour of the day, that's how we know what they're going to do. Because after the first hour or two, for the most part, they just continue. Obviously, there's days like this where you get a shooter, but that comes off of exhaustion risk. So that's something we know about. So I'm going to let it play, see what else I have to say. We got about 9 minutes until the open, so we'll skip through soon. It's going to be bullish divergence right at this low. So we have broadening from the low over here. This is going to be bullish divergence right at this low. And it was. So we have broadening formation. We were stuck inside the range. We actually took out the lows of this one. Now, can we come back through this try after taking that liquidity over here? That is the question. We'll see if we get like inside 5 or something. We do open up soon, so this is like a great place to open as far as like lower risk longs go on the futures side of things. The only thing is ES is so dang weak. I don't know if I'd want to try and bottom catch that one. I'd prefer to be looking at NAS. All right. Out. Let's see.
So
So the options 40% spread.
So normally after the open, what we do is we'll have about 10. Sometimes we start earlier. We'll have 20 minutes, and we have a lot of great traders that are in stat. So I'll ask them if they're watching anything that I may have just missed on my scanning, or when I went through it, maybe I was looking at it and just didn't like it. But now in the morning, with what I'm thinking, what overnight futures have done, I'm more interested in it. Kicking patterns and stuff will do that, where at night it's not really interesting, but in the morning, let's say I miss it, there's always someone to remind me, which is awesome. So yeah, all the cheat codes. But yeah, so this is Salesforce. I believe it was Chuck who mentioned it, which is, he's all over Twitter. He posts strat scans and stuff. I've retweeted him a couple times, but he mentioned it, and we can see big pivot machine gun, potential 2-2 reversal, potential outside weak. It's trying to go 1-3. And all of those things lining up, we're like, hell yeah. The only thing that sucked was their spreads. And we actually stopped out of this one for a loss, or actually, I believe it was on stream, I believe it was like slightly break even. It was a slight loss depending on spreads, which they weren't the best. But we're going to get to that in a sec. I'm going to start skipping through now. Not. And also Qs, we are going to be inside day. So, all right, skip to the open. There it is. So when I'm looking at this, I already see Salesforce.
Day, so good. Already partial, tiny bit.
Tesla, we tried it off the 15ers. I think I skipped that on accident, but if we go, I'm going to start opening some charts now. So if we go to Tesla, so Tesla at the beginning, we have marked out, this is your previous day high daily trigger to the upside. And what we had was 15-minute hammer. And we were like, okay, well, right off the open, we'll try and play it. Normally off the open, you just have to say smaller size because the spreads are crazy. The movement's crazy. You're going to get slippage. You might be a little slow one day, and like that can cost you 30%. So it's like you just can't go super, super big at the open. Once we let them open, and you can see the volatility with these big dojis, once we let them open, then we size up and we start understanding where prices are going with a bit more confidence. So we did take this 15er here. We saw it pop into the highs, and we'll see what I say on the stream because I don't recall exactly what it was, but we switched to a 15-second. And if we're looking at price here on Tesla,
break even on that small little entry, we will see if we set up like fivers or something. NASDAQ is sweeping those lows.
So let me actually skip back.
We will set up like fivers or something. NASDAQ is sweeping.
Yeah, so if we go and look at Tesla, the trigger on that 15er is 180.57. I believe I got stopped out slightly under that. You can see right here.
Stop me break even on that small little entry. We will see if we set up like fivers or something. NASDAQ is sweeping those lows, so we will have to see if we fail that side of the range or not. If we go to the higher time frame on NASDAQ, you can see the hourly. We're 3, 2 down, 2 down right now. And again, those highs, are we going to fall below those and actually start coming back through yesterday's range or not? And also Qs, we are going to be inside day. So can we try and flip that around to at least give us a magnitude higher? Or are we going to have to go inside day all the way down? Which if we go to the 4-hour on Qs, we are far from reverse. So what I'm doing here is I'm going through all the time frames because the more often you go through all of them, the more often you're going to understand what you're really trading. Because if I just went on Qs and I was like, oh, the morning volatility is really high and I just sat on a 1 minute, I would be getting killed because I don't know it's doing nothing because it's inside on that 4-hour, it's inside on the day, and it's red on the day against my bias. It's like all of those things together, that is a complete chop shop. That's how you lose money, right? And we don't want to be part of that. So I constantly talk about it when we have it, and we'll let it play. We'd have to get down under 295.23. We hit the hourly. Hourly reversed yesterday and then hammered up, so we're inside. And if we can get back below 296.70, it's like we have hourly magnitude here. That'll give us close enough to that 4-hour, but it's still trading an inside day. It's something I would not personally want to try and do. And one thing you can see as well is like if we're actually just going and let me see if did I skip too far ahead?
I skipped back too much. All right, this is my first time. I apologize. I'm just going to let try and play through, figure out where we are. So we can see if we're looking at NAS with that, we're looking at that just because this 4-hour candle is actually below these highs doesn't mean anything to me, because as long as we are closing or at least seeing bottom wicks around here, I'm thinking we're still going to use those highs as a reason to go higher, right? And this 4-hour candle looks really scary, but what we need to know is this is a 3-2, and we talked about that before the open. The 3-2 is important because if we see reversals down here on the lower time frames coming back towards this 3, if we get above the low of that 3, like we talked about earlier in this stream, come back above that 3, you're going to this side of the 3, right? And then we know on QQQ that will trigger the day to go 3-2, and then it's the same exact thing, except we're just going straight through the highs instead of taking one side and go to the other. And the thing is, I don't just buy it when it's dropping. We wait for that confirmation. And I believe this is where Meta, we're looking at those fivers right now. You can see those inside fivers on Meta. I don't know if my volume's off. Let's see. Looking at those inside fivers, I'll probably say something in a sec. I think we're going to turn it to faster. I talk fast though. So NASDAQ has fallen back below those highs. That is incredibly weak, but we do have outside fivers, 3-2. So it'd have to stay below that 5 or 3-2 in order for us to continue through. And if we fall back into that 3, then it's like, here's our try that's forming. So if we go Qs, we know it's inside, right? If we know it's inside, then we want to look for our try, which right now, here's your try. Look something. And so as I pointed that out, I would like to pull up the charts so you can see exactly what that looks like after the fact. So if we go QQQ on the 1, this was yesterday's. So Q's on the 1. This is where understanding those tries is very useful. So we just drew that out on stream. Your order block, if you trade ICT, is just a 3 that goes 2 and expands, right? So that's the way that stratters think about it, I guess, or at least when we're looking at these ranges, this is how I think about it. And if we look at this, it's like these 3 candles here are a compound outside bar. So all 3 of these candles, if you group them all together, this is outside. This is higher high, lower low to this candle, and this candle. That's what a broadening formation is, because we have a higher high to all this, and then we have a lower low to this stuff, right? So this 3, you extend that out in time, that's your order block, right? So 3 2s and 3s that go 2 and just continue expanding, that's all an order block is, at least when we're looking at it. And why do you think ICT, you need that sweep of liquidity to make an order block, right? Because you sweep liquidity and then you break a high. It's like that's a 3 by definition. And that's why you see order blocks so aggressively move prices, because 3s are aggression. And I bet, I don't know if it was a 3-minute time frame or something that may have that. Yeah, so here's your 3 and here's your 2. So same exact thing. I don't know if I have strat numbers on. Yeah, here's your 3-2. And what do we know? It's like, well, you can use the high of that 3 or the open. It really doesn't matter. We're just going to use the open of it for demonstration. If we play it through, you come back to the highs or the open of that 3. You can see it goes outside bar. So 3 of these candles here. That's the same thing as a broadening formation on a lower time frame, that 3 here. And you can see new continuity opens, this new 3-minute. We'll go back to a 1. But you can see they start coming back up and they fail to get back in here. The second they come in, they close below, but it's just doji, then 2-2 reversals. And that is your ICT order block with a fair value gap, right? So very similar. And this is how strat and ICT, when we say like things go together and it all has to make sense together, this is what we mean. So if we now just let this play through, I'll get back to the stream. I just wanted to show you guys that. And if we just let this, we exit replay mode quickly, you can see that was the lows down there. I actually did not buy here. I bought later once we had some 15ers up here, which will be coming up, and it's going to be 10, 20-ish, something like that. And if you're stratting, it's like this 2-2 reversal right here that comes back up on the 1 minute, you can take that. And I don't believe I mentioned it actually. And you see on Tesla, I'm looking at that try there, not really seeing much. Also inside day in red. There's your 2-2 reversal, goes instantly like we want to see. Then you go to the other side of the try.
Talking for 5 minutes through Discord. I've been talking this whole time. And there goes your try on Qs. Meta inside 3 minute and up. Salesforce is hammering under its daily trigger on the 5.
So this is where we enter Salesforce and get stopped.
Salesforce is CRM. Also, spreads on Salesforce are not the prettiest thing in the world. Sadly, if you go in the money, then they're better. So Qs, this is what we want to see. Big displacement, looks good. The only thing is this displacement, everything needs to hold, because if we can't hold and try and get this trend going, we're going to be inside day.
And what I mean by that is when you see this big displacement, you see these candle closes above all of these candle closes, this high right here. That's what's telling me like, hey, they're doing nothing here. And then this aggression into this low right here, this fair value gap, all that tells me is, hey, this low, people tried to short into that, right? So the second we start getting closes back above this low and then we displace and break that structure, which this is all ICT ideas, but you're coming through a try. It's the same exact ideas. This is just a 2-2 reversal, right? But when we see that, it's like, okay, they're buying from here. So they're definitely buying off the bottom of the try. And if you looked at our drawings this morning, we wanted to see a break of structure buying off the bottom of the try. And it's like, there it is. So instantly we see this and we're like, okay, bullish day. That we have to think that as long as that low day does not get taken out. And we're going to trade like that and you'll see. And you can see it sets up 3-2-2 hammer 5
fails. That low of that 3 sets up 5 minute hammer. And QQQ. We are inside hour. I want to see that 30 minute also inside, 15 also inside. So we'll see if they can try and set up some type of consolidation 2-1-2.
And the reason we're looking for that 2-1-2 is because that's at least an actionable signal and will have magnitude to get out of being stuck inside hour, inside day, inside 30.
Fiver hammers on Qs just formed, but we're inside, so likely these things might want to pull back in if they can't hold above. Salesforce outside 5 minute hammer to trigger the day.
So when I'm looking at this, if you were on my last stream, where would my stop go? Because we're opening at the trigger. My stop should be the other side of that 3, which if you're thinking strat terms, that doesn't make any sense because your stop should be if it fails the high of that 3. But when you're day trading these really small time frames, like we know order, like an order block for ICT, it's like you trade lower, take liquidity, trade higher, and then you retest into the range. It could go to the 50% of that wick or something, right? So my stop technically should have been this low. And if I was sized a little bit incorrectly, I believe, or I just got a really bad fill, which made me a bit emotional because that wasn't what I meant to do. And you'll see what happens here.
So if we're looking at Salesforce, stops should go at or above daily low. So you can use daily open or low a day completely.
And you can see we do mention the exact stops because Salesforce, as long as it's above its daily open and it's above yesterday's high, it's still trying to get bought. If it's not above yesterday's high, but it's still above the open, it's still trying to get bought. You have day, week, month, quarter, year buyers. All of them are buying for sure, right? So as long as we're above daily open, I'm thinking we're going, right? And you're going to notice my stop loss and me exiting does not reflect that thought. And that's 100% emotional on my part because of my fills and my size being up to you. And first target's 185.31. And Q's is holding that fiver, so that's good to see. And if we're looking at this 5-minute trigger on Q's, there's also nothing to really go against. If we opened here and triggered the fiver, we could just throw a stop at that low. But if you're taking something like this, it's like either use the open for the 50% or use the low. You have to use either or, which means wider stop. And when I'm looking at this big candle and this being stuck inside, the last thing I want to do is long right here with the stop here. Because if we fail here, we're going straight down here because we're inside. And we know if we're inside these 3 candles, being inside of this 1 bar here, we know we go to new highs and new lows over and over until we expand. And you'll see all of this candle right here, well, this all goes inside. What does it do? Goes to the high right here. Then where does it go? It goes to the low right here. And then it takes out the other side of this candle. Then it goes to the high of that candle, right? And then you can see it goes to the low of that candle again. And that's why I don't want to be taking this entry personally right here. Although you have the continuity and it's right at the open, so you can. It's just a little lower probability, and I don't want to get in the habit of taking that. It's really just, can we get above yesterday's highs on Qs again? We need to see it go 3-2 if we're going to do anything. And without it going 3-2, none of these long setups are really going to do much for us since there's not going to be any of that futures help. But so far, and what I'm explaining there is literally just, if SPY and Qs are taking out yesterday's highs, the whole market's doing it, which means they're buying the whole market, which means these long setups will go, right? And if SPY and Qs don't, then these setups can, but it's less likely. They may not go as far, etc. Far, we have put in that lower wick, which we know when we put in that lower wick, as long as we go green and we don't go back to that low day, we should expand, right? So hopefully we can see Qs try and reach now. Also, meta off of your inside and up on the 3-minute time frame is now going into 200 psych. If we go, so during the day, I should be a little bit better about this. When I'm mentioning psych levels and specific things like that, that's me saying partial into the highs, which I need to say that more blatantly, admittedly, but we'll continue. So up and to the left on meta, we need to look for our targets. On the weekly, our next target is 294. And I misclicked that target, sadly. ES is almost actually a lot cleaner. So we said we want to see that low taken out, and we took it out, and you can see we did pretty much what we wanted to see on NASDAQ before the open, where they created equal lows, ran it, pushed higher, created some fair value gaps, and then reversals back up. But we want to see now these highs up here. We don't want to see those act very aggressively and send us super aggressively lower. If anything, we want to see us drift lower or even get back above those highs, and then maybe we can run some liquidity. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you have this really aggressive move straight up, if they just send it aggressively straight back lower, especially when you see a range like this, that's your broadening formation. That's your failed order blocks, right? So what we want to see is, we don't want to see displacement that tells us like they're selling it. And that's because we've already seen this reversal, which means any sells should instantly turn into buys for the most part. There might be a couple, like you can see there's like 3 candles here, but turns into a buy. There's like 4 candles here, turns into a buy, and then boom, 1 candle, shoo, straight up, right? So if they're going to do anything, we want it to see a couple candles and then just send it up again. So like looking at Salesforce right here, I should have kept my stop right at that low, and it's well above that trigger, and you'll see what happens. If we zoom out, we don't have that same one as NASDAQ. We created equal highs up here. So if we go to NASDAQ, it's that same thing. that we mentioned earlier. Something like this. So very similar to what we talked about on last stream. If, let's say, this failed and NASDAQ just went and dumped off the cliff, does that mean this broadening formation isn't a broadening formation? No. Does that mean it doesn't work? No. Just means it didn't work in that instance. Having that belief that, hey, price takes out this low, or let's say price takes out this low down here, that means it's going back up to the other side of the range if we come back above it. Having that idea and that belief is going to make you more money in the long run. So that's what happened today. We'll see. Something like this. You just need cues to not fall back in. And so far we got 15 or Momo hammers forming, or inside bar hammers, my bad. And that's going to set up our 212, which will trigger hourly hammer, and which will trigger 3-2 day. This is me going through the bank stocks because we were eyeing them up before. So BAC, mentioned that one this morning. Outside 15er just formed. We know 3s normally show aggression. So if that goes 3-2 into the daily trigger, maybe could be an interesting one to watch. Again, banks, it's like we just need to see them go. And also FAS, what did that one do? Consolidation yesterday, swept some of these lows. Now we're coming back above them with the hammer 15er. Very interesting look. CRM, I'm going to stop at break even, or actually it's going to be for a slight loss on that one. See, I should not have done that at all. That is a very stupid mistake because we're well above that daily open, above that daily low. We're just falling back and we're retesting the previous day high. Should not have been stopping on that. But if we're looking at meta, I'm going to mention it in a second. This inside 5 and up, when you don't see it displace, if you don't see a big candle like this on Tesla, when you take an entry over high, it's not going to work. Because that big candle, that's what makes the fair value gap, right? And if you've ever been trading ICT and it's like, oh, I want to see a reversal down here, and it just goes, it doesn't even touch a fair value gap, it goes like 16 candles straight up, that's what we're trying to trade. And we'll see what happens here. When we're looking at this, it's like Meta, it just didn't go. They're not ready to buy. And when you slowly grind into these highs, what that tells me is, well, first of all, we think it's going higher. So they're just not buying right now. Maybe they'll buy an hour, half hour on a different flip, etc. But it also tells me if they're grinding into these highs, first of all, I don't want to be long anymore because these lows are all set up to just get pivot machine gun and taken out, right? And after that gets taken out, then it's like, okay, well, everyone that was trying to buy into this, they're stopped out. So what happens? If we reverse back up, they're all just going to have to buy back in, right? And there's some volume at the open. Imagine all these buyers get stopped out who want to be long, take them all out, and now they're going to have to buy again. And the algorithms and everything else are going to turn on and start ripping with cues going 3-2 day. That's a lot better to hold on to. We don't want to let things that just barely go come back in on us and then just hold it because we know if they just don't go, then they're going to the other side of the range, right? If we get under to that daily open, but when you see 3-2 up shooter on the fiver, normally that gives you a hint that likely they want to go to the other side of that 3. So we need to keep that in mind. And I'm totally right in thinking that, but I shouldn't be thinking that until this fiver goes in force. Because until that fiver goes in force, if we look at the time right now, there's 30 seconds left till we get new 5-minute candles. If whoever was selling up here, and we normally call them like hidden sellers or unknown participants or whatever you want to call it, whoever was selling up here, we know our day, week, month, quarter, year, they're buying it, right? So we know whoever's selling up here and causing this price action above daily open, if they're selling short, like they're going to get blown through and they're going to be liquidity to send prices higher, right? So seeing this and the fact there's 30 seconds for the flip on the new fivers and new 15-minute candles, I should not be stopping out right here, which I did. Now, inversely, if we're looking at meta, this inside fiver, this pivot machine gun, it's like, yeah, are we going into the flip in 30 seconds? Yes. But they're a lot closer to going inside fiver down to take this whole pivot machine gun out. So when we're looking at that, we know that one we don't want to be in. If we're looking at this one, it's like, if that triggers and goes, yeah. Same goes with meta. If that triggers and goes, yeah, get out, right? Another thing I'm not liking on NASDAQ is you go to the 1 minute, you can see just failing to displace up here. All of these highs, we want to see them displace through. They can make those wicks and trade through them, but we just need to see them do that. I just don't like seeing big upper wicks form on price. And when we're looking at that, that's like on a lower time frame basis, which that also made me a little scared holding Salesforce, right? Which I stopped out on this candle, right? And you can see next candle opens, they're whoever tried to shorten this, the second this high gets taken out, they're going to be buyers, and you're going to see how it takes off. And it was just very stupid on my part. Here's new 15ers for a 2 and 2 15er for Qs. And this 15er needs to go when you get out. Also, Meta technically has a 3-minute ad. I wouldn't take it though, because this one hasn't fair value gapped or shown. So you can see I'm explaining they did not displace here, which means I don't believe they're actually buying this right now. Shown any of that aggression we would like to see. And you can see Salesforce saves the day, goes back to the highs right on that new 5-minute flip. Snap running. Yep, they expanded that try a good bit. Wow, they've first 5 are down, second 5ers. This is a really cool thing. So if you know what the flip is, the strat works a lot better on volatile things, which is why when you get these really big days, you see me post huge gains, because that's what we're trying to trade, right? And when you get really big range candles, that's when the flip and that's when the actual signals and stuff really kick into gear, because this is all algorithmic. There's really nothing against that, because there's no one selling from 1070 all the way to 1040 in 5 minutes and then buying at 1040 and going all the way up here. There's not enough people doing that with enough skill to actually make these types of moves, right? Like there's something else driving that in my opinion. But you can see the first 5 minutes, they sell it. Second 5er of the day, that's the flip for the second 5 minute, boom, they go straight into buying. And then you get 10-minute hammer right here. Once you get new tenors right here, and it goes zoop, right back up. So just really cool. Screw the shorts, right? Jeez. Now I'm looking at chips. Also running. And the thing is I'm going through this and I'm looking, I'm like, okay, well, chips, AMD, that one's continuation. Exhaustion risk, yes. We talked about that at the open. There is exhaustion risk, but that doesn't matter until we fail yesterday's highs. If we're above it, then we're still going twos, we're still expanding. You had 2-2 reversal here, 2, 2, 2. Until it reverses, it's still good. And you can see the targets I've marked out up there. Meta, the second it goes 3, that's your entry. CRM, that's a break even. Since Qs is falling back in like this, I would say get out of CRM since it's not going. There it is. If you want to hold on to it and just keep your stops break even, you can do that as well. And I would say break even on the stock price. And Meta, yeah, there it is, outside bar, because Qs could not stay 2 up on that 15er. And when I'm saying that, Qs actually never went 2 up. So this one never went in force, which means that signal, I shouldn't even be talking about it. I just didn't see the 2, or I didn't see the 1 under it. So I thought this was 2 up, but it wasn't. And came back into the stops. Yeah. And I'm already noticing I failed to mention on Meta that was supposed to be break even, but I guess yeah, that's why I want to get out of CRM. And the spreads are wide. I took a small size on it, but it just didn't go anywhere, so you can't hold it. And I say this now because looking at it, it's like, yeah, it really didn't go anywhere. On the daily basis, I should still be long. I'm just getting too zoomed in on these time frames, and that's why at the beginning I'm flipping through the 4-hour or 30-minute hour, because if you don't constantly do that, you get zoomed in and you get sucked into it. And you can see Qs just did not want to get out of this range, and we're going back inside on the day. And if we go and look at our oneer, those upper wicks that I was talking about, that's why I don't like them, because they tell you things, right? And now that 1 minute broad information from down here, we expanded it and then put in those highs. So they're probably going to try and go to the opposite side of the range, which is 15-minute 2 up in red, go 3. And I don't believe that when spreads are too wide. That makes a couple of us, right? So like right now, you can see I'm looking at Microsoft, but there's no signals. There is a hammer that goes inside 2 and 2 reversal, pivot machine gun, but it's not an actual signal. so I'm not really mentioning it. So now I'm looking at meta, and you can see 15-minute goes up, second 15er opens goes red. That's the flip. Second 15-minute of the day negates that initial one, and I don't know if I explained that or not. We're going to get into the good price action. This is just where at the beginning, if you are trading the first opening minutes of the day and you're trading the strat, sometimes you get caught off sides and you have to stop out, or decisions are made that you don't agree with. But later in the day, there's always ways to get in, which is what I want you guys to see. Now I'm looking at SPY. I'm like, oh my God, SPY looks really weak, but I don't let it change my bias too much because it hasn't taken out previous day low. You can see Salesforce. What does it do? It takes off.
Salesforce did get
And
a little bit of a
those
pop.
who kept break-even stops off of here, like I was
Sadly,
talking about,
I closed out of that one. We'll see if it gets a little bit more volume. Looking at meta, it's actually unable to reverse on the 15er, so we'll see if that tries to set anything up. They took out 5-minute magnitude, so they technically did get exhaustion risk there.
And you can see I'm still bullish on meta. And now I'm looking at
GitLab.
I see NASDAQ is starting to bounce there at the dojis. I didn't mention it though.
I like GitLab. It's coming off those lows. Definitely, I don't know what that volume's looking like though. But GitLab actually like, because that's all-time lows right there. I believe.
Check myself there.
Oh, actually, no, they did not get the all-time lows, sadly. They're just missing it. So yeah, on GitLab, you can play it off of this daily as long as it's day.
We don't play it because it's just low volume and not worth touching. All right.
Pins, Momo 15er hammer.
And see, we're continually scanning for stocks that are starting to pick up, because you got to be in the right stocks. If you're not in the things that are moving, you're not going to make anything.
25.5s are 13%. Man, they just do not have good spreads if it's not NVIDIA or AMD, right?
Now I'm looking at NVIDIA, TTO'd right here, and it's trying to come back through. You can see 15ers back into this 3. Target up here, which is daily trigger right up there. And you see Salesforce, that one just starts taking off, but we do get entries later, which is the important thing here.
And we have no magnitude higher, right? Apple is consolidating right under that previous day high as well.
Apple ended up taking off and taking out all the targets we wanted to see.
Meta's retesting previous day's high. It's actually 322.15er back in technically. Ah, Salesforce. What a fucker. All right, new Fivers just opened up. Tesla looks like we're going, went 2 up on the 15er, and that is 3-2-30 in force, and that Momo Hammer hour we were talking about. So we'll see if it can get 2 up on the day. It's really up to Qs. You see Qs do it. Qs penny above yesterday's highs with that hour in force, and is trying to get that 3-2 day chugging along. There's still 1 on the day, just by a couple pennies. And it's a 1 till it ain't, so they can go up here and go equal highs if they want to. We need to see it go above. Meta coming back up after retesting previous day's lows, may set up some fivers.
I misspoke there, I believe.
So Q's penny above yesterday's highs.
I meant to say. you're playing Q's stuff, this is technically exhaustion risk on a smaller time frame since you're at the top of a higher time frame 3. So feel free to partial anything if you did take any longs. And the reason I mention that is because we do have a futures chat, and futures traders are all trading, and that's a great place to partial if you're trading off the smaller time frames, which is where those entries were given on Qs today. If you didn't re-enter on the hourly triggers, as long as we can stay above that, we are good to go for Qs outside weak magnitude, though. So we would prefer to see that for us. We just don't. I'm going to start skipping through just because we are almost an hour into this, and all I can tell you is once we saw this, I believe this is 5 minute. Once we saw this 5 minute coming back in, we were like, yeah, we'll see what they want to TTO. We said we do have this liquidity. They can go all the way down to this low, and we're still going to stay bullish. And do they have to do that? No. We just want signals back up that get back above previous day high to give us last week's highs. So also Tesla, we were watching that one. Taps day inside and down. We were waiting to see if that's going to rev strap back up. It did not, so there's no longs to it. And normally daily triggers, you wait for that TTO after that initial tap of the daily trigger, because above previous day's highs or lows, you do have liquidity, right? And we're playing expansions, which are technically like breaking out of a range and going further outside of it, right? So we have to wait and see, do they pull it back in? And if they pull it back in, they need to go back above that range to prove that they're going to be buying. And we can see Salesforce. So nice entries right here. They come all the way back in. You're going to see once they create them. So we had the new flip. Yeah, so now this is where it starts getting interesting. And then see, the reason you didn't hold is because you didn't know well, you knew the magnitude. You actually told it to me on Twitter before it happened. So you knew where it's going. You just got to trust it. All right. Is my mic muted? Let's see. So right now I'm flipping through. I'm like, oh my God, they're TTOing the 15ers because we have 3 2s coming back up on the 1ers. Was I muted? I don't know. I believe I talked about this. Where is it? Take continuity change. There we go. Because 15er is still like very close to just being 2 down and reversing, right? But we'll see. Did go outside 1er and not touch meta because of that. And it looks like ES at the bottom of that outside 15er, they are 3-1 on the 1 minute now, so potentially trying to set up some reversals to go 3-2 maybe. And you see it goes 3-2 right away. And the reason, so I said bottom of that outside 15er, it's important because outside 15er is broadening formation. So you get 3-2-1ers off the bottom of that larger time frame outside bar. That's coming off the bottom of broadening formation for sure. MC Wups, there's a part in this. I'm going to make sure you see it. We do talk about exactly what you're talking about. And there's a lot of people that held through this whole entire thing. A lot of people have the same struggles, but a lot of people held through the exact same thing because I was talking about exactly that while we were holding. But the entries don't occur for a little bit. I just want to let you guys see. So, So ES and Qs on the 1ers, 3 2s off the lows. Those are about to go to the other side of that internal range kind of broadening formation. Qs is a bit closer to it, and it's also testing that previous day high again. And you see ES, so bottom of that 15er. Wait, do we get reversals? We get 3, and then you can see 2s here. And now we tap that first initial high. We have to see if they're really going to try and come back through this range. They shouldn't touch these lows if so. And if we go on the Fiverr, so right there, I'm giving you guys your invalidation of this big long back to the top of these highs here, the other side of that outside 15er. These lows should not get taken out. that is the bias. As long as those aren't taken out, calls. They just went outside, so this fiver, we want to see it close strong. We still have 2 minutes left. If they can go 3 2s back through, that would be good. And same goes with Qs. And what we'll see as well on Qs is 7 minutes, we get new hour candles and new 15ers and 30s. And if we look at 15ers now, they're trying to hammer. We look at 30s, first 30 buying, second 30 they tried to bring it in. So this is another very important part of bias and playing the daily range, because you'll see sometimes I post my bias on Twitter, it's wrong, and I still end up in the same trade. This is exactly why, because we trade what's in front of us. I have the bias because if it starts going in my direction on the higher time or towards the higher time frame targets, then I'm holding to those higher time frame targets. If this thing were to go outside day and go, let's say it went 2 up on the 30, this one went 3, and then the hour went shooter down and we went 3 2 30 down, it's like we'd short it for outside day 3 3 every time. But if we go up, we're holding a lot further. Like you're talking about MC WUPs or MC, we know where we're going, right? If we go up, and if we don't, we know someone's trying to sell. Someone we don't know about, and we just have to play it. Remember that decoupling, tried to bring it in. They could not change that daily continuity. We want to see, can they TTO or not? They didn't. They were strong enough not to. Now they're setting up 15-minute actionable signals or even potential outside bars. And the thing that sucks is if this goes outside into high day, then you're going to have outside 15er, which is going to give us a new try, which would be something like this. And we'll have more exhaustion risk at high day, which would really suck, right? So I'd prefer this thing kind of just stick around in this range here and consolidate in here so we can get 15ers inside and up, or hammer to the upside. That's just me. I want to see specific things. I'm picky. And until those 15ers reverse, we really don't have much else to go off of, because fivers don't have magnitude and 15ers are red, so no magnitude there. 30 is still red. Hour is already exhausted, right? And it's still above hourly trigger, but we just need to see it go. So new fivers, I'd prefer this fiver just go inside bar. Dumping positions, they have this whole week to come back through, which I don't think. Just gonna start skipping forward once these 15ers close. So didn't really go anywhere. 15er is still just 2 down hammer right at previous day high. So you can see now my bottom left is Amazon, because that 15er looks just like Q's. But what's the difference? Amazon off the open, you go 15er 2 up, 15er 2 up, 15er doji. They're not selling. A doji just means indecision, or they're kind of fighting back and forth. But you don't see big red candles. They're not selling. These people who bought here, they want more. Because if they're not selling, they're either going to buy more or they're going to sit and wait and let it consolidate, right? And both of those are bullish in my book, right? So that's why Amazon, it came up on my scans and I saw that 15er. I was like, hell yeah. See if there's any other decent options. And as I'm doing this, there is alerts. I'm going to CRM. It's not dead in the water yet. You could 15er rev strap back up, and that would be valid for those that stopped out with me before that thing started taking off. Maybe they give us a second chance at it. It's all riding on that Q's 15ers to go for us, though. And on top of that, I'd like to add, this is all alerted for the most part. I'm not perfect, so I do miss some things some days, but when I see really good setups, that's what goes into alerts. So there might be a day or two where we just don't have any. And I'm mentioning this because we do have premium members that are in the stream here. But Amazon and Qs, 15-minute hammers, these beautiful, beautiful setups, and 98 calls trading at 0.9. I believe it went to 240 at our target. And actually, I deleted that too soon. Yeah, so here is your Qs in Amazon. 1 second. So right after they trigger, which you're going to see in a second, Amazon Qs, they went to new high days. Qs hold above new high day, move to 303. Mistype, I meant 304, which I did correct down here, which I got cut off. And Amazon 106 or 100.63. And I believe you'll see the targets and reasoning as we go through it here. So MC WUPs, I thought you tweeted that broader information as well. The broad information is a broad information. it doesn't guarantee you're going to the other side until you reverse, right? And when it doesn't reverse, it expands, which is where I tweeted this morning, like right when it started taking off the whole market. I said, what was it? I said, this expand on Qs will be nice because we saw it, and you'll probably see me say that in here. So could be looking at JPM if other, yeah. So you can see now we're really lining up our charts because we're looking for everything that's hammer 15 or with the Qs, because anything that looks like the indexes is going to move with it more than likely. So JPM here, they're hammering off the lows. And once these trigger, we're going to switch off the video, go to the charts, and I'll take questions. So for those that are patiently waiting, thank you. Similarly, if you go on FAS, yeah. So FAS, yesterday we had the 1 minute broadening formation up in here, and you can see it made lows, actually made a lower high, lower low, higher high right here. Lower low again to this 3, same 15-minute hammer setting up. So financials look like they're setting up similarly. Not the strongest things in the market again, but we'll see. We got 2 minutes to close. And again, the reason we're looking at them is because they have big range, and we'll see exactly what JPM does. Amazon's 15 hammers nice and green. Qs is starting to green up more, back above previous day high. And if you go ES on the oneer, that 3-2 took out target 1, target 2. Now we're in the fair value gap. We need to see this thing ideally try and hold inside that fair value gap to bring us higher. Because if we look down into the left, it's like there's not really much to support prices down here unless you're looking at, maybe look at like this order block or something, right? And even that, you want the fair value gap on the order block. They already tapped into the one right here, so I'm thinking there's no reason to come down here. You have all the wicks and everything testing these highs. There's no reason. And that's why we want to see this fair value gap. If we were to draw it out, go to this high, that's where that TTO went. I want to see prices stay in that fair value gap because I don't really think they're going to go down there. There's no reason to. And if they do, then there's nothing to support it. So they just fall. So we just want to see it go, come back through that outside 15er we were talking about prior right here. Here's outside oneer. So that may be our TTO. Amazon, you little piece of crap. Goes outside 15er, so it's 3-2 15er hammer. And the reason I say that is just because I want things that look like the Qs. I believe in here I say that I don't take Amazon, which I actually don't. And that was just my decision in the moment. And do I regret it? No. Should I have taken it? Probably. Did I take more size in Qs? Because you're going to hear exactly what I'm thinking in a second. Yes. So it didn't really matter. I just wanted to allocate more into Qs, and Amazon going outside, I was just like, I'm good. It's still okay to take. It's just I'm not going to. I wanted the 2 down, 2 up, and I'm just going to be stingy like that. I do have some Qs positioned, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But it did go hammer in force. As long as that hammer stays in force on Amazon, it is good to go. And that's important because this candle can go up, go down, go up, go down. It could be a shooter, whatever it is. As long as that hammer stays in force, as long as we don't start falling back into that 3, that's still expanding the range no matter what this candle looks like here. We need to see Qs do it, which is where I messed up. And you can see I actually corrected myself. That's where I messed up on Salesforce. And I noticed that right away. And I mentioned, I was like, I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah. That's why I'm mentioning it on Amazon. So I think about it, and whoever's watching or listening is also hammer stays in force on Amazon. It is good to go. We need to see Qs do it, though. And looking at Qs, it actually... Qs can't. I had the wrong thing marked out on there. I don't know if I meant to do that, but we're waiting for this 15er hammer trigger. Then likely Amazon can't, right? So same thing goes. These things, they don't have giant higher time frame magnitudes. It's all continuations for the most part. So we have to be... And this is where I correct myself on Amazon careful. As well. Amazon, decent magnitude for outside month, but that same idea with that week. As long as we don't fall back in, we're healthy, but we do not want to see it fall back in. This is a rookie mistake on my end. I shouldn't be going down to a 5er. I should stay on that 15-minute. Whatever you enter on, stay on that time frame. And that's going to be a rule I really need to hammer home myself. we're technically inside hour. Goes hammer and force. To be careful. Amazon decent mag. As long as we don't fall back in, we're healthy, but we do not want to see it fall back in. And looking at it right now, if I was a little bit smarter in the moment, seeing Amazon hold above while Q's isn't doing anything, that should have told me, hey, like, fuck Q's. We should get an Amazon because that thing's probably going to go a lot harder, which hindsight, it actually doesn't. But seeing this relative strength in Amazon, I should have been actually paying more attention to it than I was. Because more often than not, the things that are stronger
Amazon
here
looks like it might expand, though. Yeah.
Are going to be
It's
stronger
got the
than
magnitude. We
indexes.
just need to see them go.
And you can see it's ripping without Q's. And that gives me, I'm like, okay, well, they're really trying to get it to go. We have an actionable signal 15er. If these don't go, today Q's should M. Let me get back. There we go. All right, Q's 15er goes hammer and force. That's going to help your Amazon. JPM is trying to do similar. Which is FAS probably doing it as well. We need to see them go. These should just go. We are potential outside week
Pay
Q's.
attention.
We are 3-2 day Q's. And now we have an actionable signal 15er. If these don't go, then someone's up there selling that we don't know about. And if we go time frame continuity, you can see why. It should just go. There's almost no reason for it not to. Besides, we're technically inside hour, but that can go too. We know that. This should just go. And the reason I keep saying that is because if you tell yourself that and you believe it, then you're going to hold your position. If you're like, oh, it's full time frame continuity, but it's not moving right now, so it can't move, then you're going to sell early or you're going to get out and it's going to screw you. Which we still keep really tight stops. On this one, it traded down here and then trade into a trigger. So our stop's tight. It's right here, which you'll see we do get stopped out, but we re-enter that. And the reason we re-enter is because we're confident, like, hey, they should just go. And if they're not going to go, then stop out for like $100. If like I think it's like a $3,000 position.
Not what we want to see.
So it's like stop out for $100 there, but take the next one and risk another $100 because it should. And I'm still marking out the wrong high. I don't know why. Now I'm just looking at futures to see if anything changed that may make me think the other way, which I shouldn't be doing. And this is actually why I've kind of pivoted away from trading futures, or at least putting way too much focus on them, because doing this is what actually messes me up the most with my bias. Because strat and future trading and ICT stuff, although they're similar, it's like ICT, I'd be thinking, well, they're wicking this high. I want to see it try and displace and then go lower high, lower low here, right? But I shouldn't be thinking that.
We have the time frame continuity. There's every reason in the world to believe we should be going higher, and someone up here is trying to sell. If we start seeing it reverse back in, we do not want to let a loser get bigger, right? So we'll keep it because we can eat through whoever's trying to sell here, because more than likely they're wrong, since we know we want to see them.
It's kind of funny.
Outside weekend Qs, right? So if we know they're wrong, they can sell all they want, but once they're unable to sell anymore, then we'll go through them. But if they're going to sell it and fall back in, we might just TTO again and stay within this range, right? Because we are still inside hour if we cannot go 2, which means it's going to be stop city again, but I want to tight stop it because I don't really want to get wrecked, right? And looking at it, Amazon, nice and strong. So that's good to see, but you don't want to see it fall back in. And if Q's falls back in, I would imagine this one at least pulls back. And even like AMD and NVIDIA, second hour of the day, you can see they're starting to pull back in, go a little bit red, have some profit taking. So don't want to let Qs go against us.
And you can see we've gone from the first 5 minute to the second 5 minutes to the first 15 to the second 15. And we do this the whole open, the first 2 hours of the day. There's new flips every single, it's like every 15 minutes, or every 5 for the first 2, and then 10, and then 20, 30, etc., all the way up until the hour. And then once we have the hour, the only 2 left are the 4-hour flip and the daily close.
And Qs is starting to get really tight in here with triple inside oneers.
And you can see Q's, it's like they're not actually reversing it. They're just sitting right here.
What's the deal,
And without
Q's? We
strat
can
reversals
expand on
down,
that.
they're not doing anything. They're just, there's someone selling up here, and those people are just waiting to get ran through pretty much. So Q's is trying to hammer one back up. We'll see. So you can see they run liquidity. This is a hammer oneer. I want to see that try and go and trigger our stuff because there's almost no reason they shouldn't. You had this multiple inside bars. This sets up a rev strat. Magnitude goes to that high. And you see I'm constantly flipping through charts because Amazon train the strat, you need to be on the right things. Its 15-minute trigger and 15-minute open, so that one's technically still fine. Salesforce right here. I don't know if that's 15er up or if that's setting up the 15er, but I know we do talk about it. And you see I'm constantly just flipping through stuff, looking. Q's, I don't know if it was set or not, but it did not try and go. We'll see. They're still just kind of chilling out right here, so they haven't really reversed, taken out any of this structure. But we want to see them go. Whoever is trying to sell up here, there's important here. Liquidity, it's important here. Outside bar on the oneer. This shows aggression, right? So now we want to see what happens after. Still there, obviously, but they're really not doing a good job of it. And Amazon, they're still trying to hold on to that. They haven't quite came back in on that 15er. And this is all patience, but so far, very important. Open this hourly, Q's doji on the hour doing nothing inside, which is good and bad because sideways is good since they're not selling from that first initial hour of the day, but they're also not quite buying it yet since this 15er is just sitting. That trigger. And you can see they go right back above that trigger. Once it takes out that high right there, it's like, here we go. They should just send it. There's not a single reason they shouldn't. And Amazon, you can see it, they held above that 3. As long as they were above that, they are expanding. Go to a 1 minute. Trigger was right there, and they just held above. They did not come back in. So that one just took out equal highs at high a day. And given that Q's now just went off that 15er, remember, whoever was selling up here, they can be wrong and just continue doing that. This initial move up here, and that's the important part, the displacement. And if you're a stratter and you get stopped out all the time, you can wait for that. And you can throw your stop right at the trigger and just buy after displacement if you want. You're going to take wider risk, and you are going to be buying after that IV spike. So that's one thing to note. But this displacement, that's important. The second you see that through a trigger, if it doesn't touch that trigger, that's a winning position. We really shouldn't see this thing come back in much at all because we have full time frame continuity. Daily is 3, 2, and force. We've TTO'd, hammers in force on the 15er. We need to see that 30 an hour go 2 up, and then we should be pretty much in the clear over there on Q's. You can see Amazon just ripping. Amazon, there you go. And there's not too much. Yeah, let's see. I just want to hold these new 15ers opening on Q's. We want to see those stay outside, ideally. If they can stay outside of this try, then that's your expando. We should see big candles off of that. This is where I tweeted our broadening formation expando right on this candle. We have a big candle up, trigger, that worked. They should not come back to it. And we got Amazon as a winning position. We have Q's as a winning position. And I believe also, I forgot to mention Salesforce. I failed to mention about that RevStrat 15er to try and hop back in. And it did go. So things that go like this and create a fair value gap or this big aggressive move up in price, we don't want to see them back to trigger. If this falls back to trigger, that's a break-even stop. Same goes with Amazon. Same goes with Q's. Anything else. And so this is important. We're removing our risk instantly. So we're about what, like an hour, we're an hour 15 minutes into the day. We have potentially 3 positions, definitely 2 if we're paying attention. And our risk is 0. Our risk is break even, maybe commissions. And that's important because if we have every reason to believe we're going up, get your risk out of there, because if you're not risking anything, you can hold as long as you friggin' want. And if you do that right away, then no matter how high prices go, if as long as you don't watch your P&L and you just look like, hey, we know where it's going. We talked about it this morning before the open, potential outside week on Qs. Just hold it to target, right? Be as big aggressive move, as long as it's not break even stopped, you're good. Amazon new high. And so we do get our expand on. You can hear me laughing because it was so easy. And that's going to end at least watching the video. We had about 80 people at the beginning. We have 60 now. So thank you guys all for sticking around with me. But once we do that, this is pretty much the end of the stream where we kind of just talk about it. So you can see in the morning, there's some things setting up. I didn't alert any setups and minus these 2. So these were only 2 positions that alerted, and here it is. So new high day off hammers. Qs needs to hold above that high day for the move to 303. Amazon 163, yes. And then Amazon just updating people, blah, blah, blah. Now at 2.0, stop should be in profit. You should be still in 100 psych or 163 target. And Qs, same deal, up decent, stops break even, target 304s. And you go to ES, it's like 15er closes above these highs. We want to see these highs act as support here, and those did send us up to the rest of that liquidity. And you can see here's target hit, here's other target hit, and I exited all but one, just left it for my FOMO. And there wasn't much else besides end of day. If we go and look at Qs, this is where you guys can ask me any questions you want. Go to Qs. The way it works is, so here's our entry. It zips instantly. There's no reason not to hold because there's no reversal until you hit 304.22, right? So all the way up to weekly magnitude, not a single 15-minute against us, which is how we trade. We just let it go. And what we see end of day is when you're trading daily range, that initial morning stuff, you can take the lower time frames because it's more aggressive. Afternoon, watch the hourly, because if the hourly doesn't reverse, then it's still going, right? And what do we see at the end of the day? Inside hours. So what's happening tomorrow? More than likely it still goes, because we have 309 and 311 above. And alongside that, we had an add. So it's like you take this position, you can add to it right here, and you can do that. And let's say I was trading Friday's contracts. It's like, okay, leave some runners from this one, take some profit at outside week, add back into it with next week's contracts, and just swing overnight if you want to. Obviously, that opens you up for more risk, but if you had a really big winner down here, it's all house money anyways, right? And we know if this thing's just going to 22221, 22222, it's going all the way up here, and that's what it's doing currently. So we're going to expect that. But that's all I really got for you guys. We went through the video, and hopefully it was really beneficial. Honestly, this is the best thing I've ever thought to do, because going through and watching myself do it, it makes me think a little bit more about what I'm going to be saying tomorrow morning. So break even is the underlying, and I do that because of what MC Weps is talking about with those big death candles that kind of come second or come after. So if we go to 15-minute, you can do it on the option if you're trading liquid ones like the indexes, and you can see. So we talked that 3 aggression, inside bar consolidation, 2 boom takes off, should not come back to that inside trigger, right? But if you're trading, and let's say we're trading with wider stops instead of the really tight ones, so our stops here. If this triggers and then we just instantly jam our stop right up to here on the option contract, which means we bought the option contract on this trigger, which means you filled the spread on the option, which means you really own it right here. So this candle goes up. This one has that slight wick lower, IV and stuff on that option drops, the spreads widen a little bit, and you stop out, right? You're going to get really frustrated doing that. So what I do is I use the price of the stock, which yes, you get some slippage if you're not trading the liquid stuff, but that's just how you stay in the winning positions, because if the stock's still going, the stock's still going. Do you look at sectors before entering a trade, and could you break down PXD? So sectors, for the most part, we just know it's like, if we're looking at indexes, so if I go to SPY, we can very easily just kind of see which ones are moving more, which obviously big day for SPY too. Not going to discount that. Daily magnitude hit, and on ES, it actually closed right at our final target. So I'll just draw that on here. But it's like looking at SPY, we had 2-2 reversal. We go to Qs, 3-2. The 3 is stronger because they took out both sides. So we know if we're going to go 2-2 on SPY, 3-2 on Qs can be way better. And why? It's like pivot, 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 pivot. We have this high to take out, and we're already outside on the week. We're above. We're expanding that 3 on the week just to go more range, right? And if we don't go inside bar tomorrow, we're still expanding above Thursday's high, right? So sectors, not so much as of recent. Sectors is way more important in a bull market. With just high volatility and stuff, it's really just you can stick with the indexes, wait for nice signals with good range. And now it's like we know Qs. It's like, well, what's big parts of the Qs? It's like, well, Apple, but what's Apple? It's inside on the month. You can see the 1 down here. It's a mess. So Apple's not doing anything. Microsoft, that one's also inside, but we go to a week. It's like this one's a long green week. We know when we see that one's probably still bullish, which you can see it expanded that tribe. We didn't trade it that day, but the logic is still there if we're going to end up taking bullish trades. But the biggest one was if we go to NVIDIA, it's like, well, NVIDIA, this one's been at the highs and this one hasn't pulled up off the lows. Like it's just going straight up, right? And if it's going straight up, it's probably going to continue going straight up until it reverses. So this is a part of Qs and it has the same setup, 3-2 right at the high. You'll expand above that, and it does. So no reason to really look at sectors until I guess things start to get choppy. And the reason I say that is because if we go to like SPY, so when we're trading, we want to trade through previous range, which is why 2022 and 2023 are going to be the best years to trade. Because if we go back here, it's like SPY, this is all going into all-time highs. It's like what happens into all-time highs? You chop, 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 reverse, take out all these stop losses, kind of like on Meta, right? And then you reverse back up and you do it faster or more aggressive for the most part. And if we kind of just move over here, you can see chop, chop, reverse, take out the stop, and then aggressively into the highs, and then chop, chop, takes out the highs aggressively, takes out a stop here, and then aggressively back into the highs, chop, chop, right? And it just continues that over and over. So that's where sectors come important, because SPY can be doing this, but XLE, if we look at it from the 12-month, it's like, what was XLE doing? It's like, well, XLE is coming through all of this range here, all the way up to these highs. So this is pivot machine gun inside your up in 2022. So you have this range to come through. And if we go and just mark it out, I'll put a weekly chart on. It's like, you can see the difference. It's like, okay, XLE. This one has all of this range on the left to come through, which means there's stop losses and liquidity and people in positions that are going to have to exit them. And it goes 2 up in red, 2 reversal. It gaps down, hits its magnitude, then goes 2 down in green. After hitting that magnitude, when you hit magnitude, this becomes a try. The second that goes green, potential 3. Boom, right? And then 3-2. Mark out the high. They fail to come back into the 3. And then 2 reversal shooter. Maybe you exit, maybe you don't. But yours bright green, hammer back up into the highs, pulls back in, doesn't stop that out technically. But then you have 3, 2 down, 2 up again, back into the highs, inside a oneer and back up. And there is some issues with this. It's like, would we be stopping out there on a weekly basis? Personally, I probably would have been, but I also don't trade off the weekly. I like the lower time frames. But you can see it's like this thing will just go and go and go for the most part. And that's all of 2022, I believe. Yeah, so all of 2022 up into those highs until there's no pivots left to take out. So like this 70% move on XLE up in the XLE sector. Now we compare SPY from the beginning of 2022 to June. Oh, I actually picked a bad year because I forgot 2022 is when we started the, crash. That is my bad. But on SPY, let's just compare it to whatever SPY was doing here. It's like, if we take, we'll go like here to here. It's like, okay, 18% because it's just going into the highs. It has to stop everyone out. So you're going to get more on the sectors when SPY is going into the highs. But when these indexes have liquidity to get taken out, which it's like, can we mark it out? Yeah. It's like, here's liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. And if you don't believe in liquidity, then sucks. I don't know. It's how it works for me. It's like you have all these highs to take out, so they can come back through this and rip it like no other, right? And you can see it's like big rip into the highs, take them out. And then what? Big rip into lows, take them out. Same exact thing. And you can see the big moves. So it's like you don't really need to focus on sectors too much. CE of high candle wick half the XLE. ES daily fair value gap. So yeah, we're actually looking at ESM 2023. Go to the daily and mark out your daily level right here, right there. And that was my level. That was the last one. It was actually where we closed. Which it's like, okay, going into Friday, what happens on ES? Well, here's those previous highs we just took out. If we fall back below those, then it's like this is all free game as long as we stay below those highs. And it is 7:30, so I'm willing to take about a half hour more of questions. I wish I didn't spend as much time watching the stream, but there wasn't too much I could really skip through. I was very talkative today, so we will deal with what we got. There will be more streams to come. So again, any questions, drop them in the stream chat, please. Oh, I saw a PXD breakdown. So PXD, you can already see my broadening formation. So they go all the way up to the highs. What happens at the highs? Zoom out. Where's your broadening formation? It should be blatantly obvious right here. You head back here. Oh my God, it's not gonna let me draw it. It's like, okay, PXD, here's your try. And what happened before that? Well, high, low, gets stuck inside here. You can see creates trend, higher high to this high here, lower low to this low here, higher high to this high here. And that's because we're stuck inside this range. Then you go lower low again. And then they fail to go and make that new higher high, which that happens, right? They took out this high. They come back below these lows or try to. And again, how does this try expand if we stay below those lows? And boom, expands, takes out these, right? And when that happens, it grows from this try to now these lows and these highs because you're no longer stuck inside here. And if we know prices take out both sides of a range, it's like you've taken out the low. What happens when we come back above these lows? As long as we stay above them, we're going to the other side of the range. And then what happens at the other side? The same thing. So let me info line. We'll just go like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. We'll make it rough. Now, from the top part of that range, it's like, what are we doing? Shooter 2-2 reversal on the year, right under 17967. As long as we do that, we are going to 11182, and then you want the CE of that wick. That is going to be 8126. And you can use 4862 as your next target as well. So as long as they stay below this, then they're going down here into these levels. If they fail to stay below here, we still, if we just look at these highs, it's like you have all the wicks up here. Yes, those are important. But if we look at the closes, you can see where they all line up together. So if they can't stay below here, they're not technically falling back into this range. And if you ignore wicks, it just gives you a little bit more of a, what's the word? Get a little more flexibility with your bias because it's not like every single high that gets taken out, you fall back through, right? Even though it's like we are below that. Yeah. So technically we should be bearish and the year's red, we should be bearish. Yes. But given that, it's like just another level where you can be like, oh, like we'll see if we can close back below that or at least get below that for an extended period of time to give me some more confidence in it. So Duke Togo, that's exactly what I was talking about before with the strat. You need highly volatile stocks that go quickly and go instantly. And is that every single stock? No. Is that the ES every single day? No. Is that the SPY every single day? No. Is that the Qs every? No. It's like you need range and you need aggression. Whereas aggression, long green candles, right? And we go to SPY today. It's like, why did everyone make so much damn money? Well, 2-2 reversal. Where's the aggression? It's like all of that, right? Do we need it from that low? Technically, no. And if we're trading SPY, would that be nicer to have it at that low? Sure, right? But it's because we know where the range is. We know it's a potential outside week up here. So as long as that range is nice and big and we get the triggers that go, which we go to SPY, it's like, what did they do? They didn't touch it, didn't touch it. Daily trigger, what happens? Where does their stop go? It's like, well, here's your 15er right here. That would be a valid stop, nice and tight, right? And you're risking 50 cents. And honestly, that's almost too much for me. And when you see this big candle, it's like your risk goes to zero instantly. And what do we expect? It shouldn't touch that entry. And here it goes. So if you are ICT trader, you didn't even get in this because it was too strong for you to get in. So you have to kind of decide, do you want to be ICT trader where you traded in this chop here and it's like perfect? Or do you want to be a strat trader where in this chop you might have a little bit of a rough time, but you stop out twice, you're like, I'll go and trade a different day, right? Which is what happened yesterday. And then today is why we make money, because yesterday I stopped out. I think I lost between both my accounts like $500 or something. But today would go in and made, I think it was like $4,000, right? So that's why the strat works the way it does. And it's also why the strat, you have to be in the tickers. You saw me flip through 1,000,000 tickers all day because you have to do that if you're going to be trading the strat and trading the strongest things in the market, which is what I want to be trading. It's nice to trade ICT on the futures and it works very well if you know what you're doing. But in things that go quickly, instantly, and 1,000% in a day, you're not doing it, at least for the most part. So Friday with quad witching, honestly, personally, I'm gonna stream tomorrow, but I'm not planning on taking any trades. And the reason is, first of all, I've never sat in my computer and not taken a trade. So that's something I want to do just so I can say I've done it. Secondly, because quad witching and these tries and everything, I just feel like, can they go up forever? Yeah, but I don't really want to buy the high IV. Everyone's already thinking it's going up, so it's like they could just go sideways and really chop some people up, and I don't really want to be a part of that. I've had a very good week, and there's no reason for me to go and risk that all on a Friday. And it's St. Patty's Day, and I'm gonna be having some darties and parties with friends who are back from college and things like that. So that's another reason, but not really the main one. Just no reason for me to be honest. There's no like cues, targets already hit, it's all done, right? They can go inside day. That's what I would prefer at least. Maybe they maybe they don't, maybe they do. So if ES 2023 goes back below that old high, we can target. So I'm guessing you're talking about ES1. I'll go to ESM just to make sure. So yeah, so when I talked about this one up here, so if we're identifying what range we're in, we have the bigger one, which is potential outside week, and we have the smaller one, which is here's this 2 down, here's 2 down, 2 up. On SPY, it actually hit magnitude, so this isn't the best example. But 2 down, 2 up, this is the high, this is the low of that smaller time frame range, which if you know the box setup, ding, 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 go to a 15-minute. Here is your box, right? And this is previous week low right here. And what happened? Accumulation at previous week low, displacement, higher low, higher high. Now they haven't actually shifted the structure up here on the bigger time frame if we're just looking straight at ICT stuff, right? So if we do start doing stuff like this, and your broadening formation would have to look like that, right? And it's solely basing your bias on the knowledge that if we lose these highs, we go to these lows. Do we have to know if they're going to do like bounce the highs and go higher or go into this fair value gap and then go higher? No. But if we can find a short position here, take it all the way down into this fair value gap, which straters, we don't like, you don't even have to know about that, right? It's like we take it all the way down into here. As a stratter, if I'm short from here and goes to here, my stops are break even for sure. And if we start seeing an hourly reversal against, then I'm out. It's like I don't have to know that we're going to bounce here. I'd rather take the short here and plan on this going all the way down here, because more often than not, that's what happens, right? And if more often than not, that's what happens, and you trade like that every single day, even though it's not every single day, you are going to be short up here and you're going to take profit down here. And maybe you add in this broadening formation up here like we did last week. I drew a dick on accident. I've got about 20 more minutes, so any questions at all? It doesn't have to be trading related. Trade like me, always taking profits at extremes. And I can't say I'm always doing it. It's how I want to trade and it's how I want to think. So you have to look at the chart and tell yourself that. That's why I didn't swing SPY calls. What, you didn't? Did you not swing because I don't know? There's a couple of reasons. I don't know. Are you talking about this high to this low? It's like we did take that high out technically. Or are you saying these highs potentially fail? If I were to trade tomorrow, the way I would frame it on ES is this level. I want to see a decent pullback on that. If that just means coming back to here, fine, right? I want to see a decent pullback on that. And if we get reversals or a reason to go long, then sure. But the thing is, this is going to be inside day if we don't go and make a new high overnight, which means choppy mess. And I don't really want to be a part of that, especially look at this big ass daily candle, right? Now, what is my bias if we take out yesterday's highs? It's like stay above it, target liquidity, or previous candle highs, whatever you'd like to call it. So the way the strat works, you have to trade off of all the time frames, and that's why in the morning we talk about all the higher time frames, because those are the things we know about. We don't know about the 15-minute candles of a day that hasn't opened yet. So in the morning, if we talk about the higher time frames and we understand where those higher time frame magnitudes sit, doesn't mean those magnitudes get hit every time. It just means, hey, if you take a 2-2 day on SPY here and it works, swing it because it's going up here. It's going outside on the week 3-3, or maybe it goes 2-2 next week, right? Both of those things are valid. And you can do that because your risk is nothing. Because like, what are the odds that they gap it down to this entry? Probably 0. What are the odds we go inside day and don't hit that entry? Pretty high. What are the odds we go 2-2 tomorrow? Also pretty high because we closed at the highs. The 4 indicators, are you talking about time frame continuity? So think of it this way. So ICT's power of 3 it's a similar idea, except we don't trade for the wick. We just trade for the body, right? So if we have a daily open, let's say we're looking at the day, it's like, here's your daily open. If we're above that, we are bullish on the day because it's green. And you might be like, okay, well, Alex, like this candle went green and red 6 times. It's like, those are the days we just don't trade. You get stopped out twice in the morning, next day, right? It's like, okay, Alex, what about this day? It's like, well, where did that go actually? Because that one we actually knew about. If we go, actually it's on ES. I'm going to go on a tangent, or I'm not going to let myself go on a tangent, but I am going to show you this. So it's like, this is where ICT, or this is where strat traders kind of get mad. It's like, if your daily open, it's like, we were green on the day and then it sold all the way back down here. And like, it should have been gone because it was green on the day. The problem with that is you have to know your broadening formations and your magnitudes. And if we draw them out, this would be a broadening formation. Did they make the lower low here? No, they made it here. So they go up into the highs of it. And then that continuity doesn't matter because your exhaustion risk top of the try. So you get reversals here. You can see the overnight session consolidates inside, creates a new try right here, then goes lower. So it can change. And that's why the strat's kind of hard to program. We've had some troubles with it. But the way that it works is you're going to have the hour, day, week, month, quarter, year. You want all those to be the same. Why is that? Because you go to Tesla, for example, we go to a weekly time frame. It's like, okay, since we're trading stocks, is that a signal? That's so funny. I don't even know what I'm looking at. Tesla weekly chart looking bullish. I mean, good job, Alex. But anyways, if we're looking at our time frame continuity for on Tesla, it's like, okay, quarter, year, week, those are all 2 up because there's no yellow circle and they're going higher. So we're looking at a weekly time frame right now. It's like, well, if here's our 3, we want to see if it comes back through this 3 at all in the next coming weeks. We want to be long because the year and quarter they're buying. And yes, the month's technically pulling back, but quarter and year, those last longer than 1 month. So once we get reasons to go long, these things are keeping us up. And if we let it play through, there is your 3-2-2. Yes, it was messy. They didn't fail outside of that range. You can see I tested it. That's the box setup. And then what did they do? Zoop all the way up, right? And looking at it, it's like, would I have held this entry for 7 weeks? No. But what happened here? Big green candle. And then once you see that, the month, the quarter, and the year all go green right here. Full time frame continuity. It's like you see that, you're like, okay, stay above this high, we expand, right? And it's a 3, so we know it's going to run, right? So what happens the next week? They open at the high and they instantly go green. It's like, I want to be long that as long as that week's green. What happens? You let it play out. It goes 2, 2, 2, 2. Inside bar, add 2, 2. Inside bar. Then you get kind of a mess, and that's where things start stopping you out because you can see that continuity changes. If we go back up here, this is where it's pretty useful. Month, quarter, and go red right up here. It's like you see that, you're like, shit, we got 3 months of pullback. I don't want to be long that. And you're long from right here. And it went 2, hammer, 2, inside bar, add to it, and then 2, boom, explosion. And you're like, okay, consolidate. And then month and quarter open, and they go red, and you don't want to be a part of that. And you see all of them go red, right? And once they flip all back green, then you're game on again. You can see they're toying with the continuity. They're creating new broadening formations, more liquidity. And then you wait. When do they go green? That's when things take off. And it's there it is. And you can see just how amazing that is. Because just the week before, all right, they turn it green here. They had some conflict. And conflict is the lower time frame here being red while the higher time frames are green. That's what a pullback is. And then boom, they kick it back into gear right there. And that conflict's important because when this is in conflict, the lower time frames are red. This is people trying to get in short because it's going down, right? It's like the week's red. Oh my God, Tesla, they're down on the week. Whoa. This is people trying to short. And it's also longs now have something to take out and people to short squeeze. That's kind of the idea. And that same idea with SPY, it's like we want to see liquidity to get taken out. It's like, well, here's your high. We're above it. This is where the expansion happens. And we're going to the top of this 3 if we're going to do it. And now we play it through. And you can see they take it off and they expand off that high. Create some liquidity. They went 3. They stayed inside. Created a new try down here. Hammered up. 3 2s. As long as it can hold the highs of that 3, it doesn't. Inside and down into it. And now it's like I'm looking at this. We have this type of stuff. Now we're stuck inside quarter, inside year, which creates this broadening formation. Now they come to the bottom of it, they're full time frame continuity down, and that's when you're shorting or you're waiting for that to change. Now, bottom of the try changes back to full time frame continuity up, and I guess we'll see where it goes. Here's your try on Tesla. Open high, low close implies we don't close at high day tomorrow if it's bullish. If you get a Judas swing at open, we probably go higher. It's just a TTO. It just goes red the first hour, second hour green, buy it. Oh God, I got 9 minutes. But speaking of, it's like, well, what's Tesla doing on the year? Anyone who got long in 2021 after a big year in 2020, those people got stopped out. They're done. And we can see 3s show aggression. Where's your first 3 on the Tesla? Right before boom takes off, right? And that's why 3s are important. Even on the higher time frames, it works, which is crazy. But as long as that's 2 down in green, it's like technically Tesla, what's it doing? Failing this low and trying to go to this high. But they have to do it this year. They have to stay green and then go 2-2 next year. Go to like a month. So they went 2-2 reversal. There's no actionable signal, but They didn't create a big fair value gap that held, so that one wouldn't have worked anyways, at least on a monthly basis. Now they took out last month's lows. Now we have a 3 here, potential 2-2 reversal next week. And if they can do that, then try and take it. And you do have a fair value gap down here, so I guess we'll see. Battle of the two. You can also see, what does this line up with? The CE of that wick, right? And what is that? Last month's lows. It's crazy how it all lines up. And take out a yearly. Yeah, isn't that crazy though? It's like right when 2023 opens, this is the yearly open here. There's your Judas swing. Here's your 3-2. And yes, the 3-2 gapped its trigger, but did they come back into that 3? No. So if you're trying to do that at the beginning of the year, it's like, what, any of getting longs up in here, which would have been kind of difficult. I see a box set up on the lower time frame. If we go to replay mode back in here. Ah, fuck it. Oh no, I got it. CE is it's just the center. What, something equilibrium? I just call it the midpoint. It's the midpoint of that wick. They call it the CE because there always has to be a freaking special name for everything, because why not? Strat does have some special names for stuff too, so I'm not really shitting on ICT, but CE, I something equilibrium, consequent encroachment. There we go. Yeah, and it's like, what the hell is that? Cockroaches, man. Yeah, but speaking of Tesla, here's your box setup. You get really big closes above this high, and then they test this low again. But we are running out of time, so sadly, we're going to have to end it off here, but hopefully it was helpful, and if it was and you're new, feel free to subscribe, and we will definitely have a stream somewhere in the near future. More than likely, it'll be on the weekend. I don't know if it's this weekend or next weekend. More than likely, just in the future. I can't really give you guys a specific date. But hopefully you guys have a good rest of your night, and if you do trade tomorrow, good luck. Keep the stops tight, and I'll see you guys in the next video or stream.